Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're getting into the original source material for one of the 20th century's most influential political movements to figure out something pretty amazing, how it wrote its own Bible.
What we're looking at today is this foundational text from Peronist Argentina. It's a document that's literally described within its own pages as a political catechism, like a guide for the faithful. So how does a political movement even begin to write its own Bible? Well, this document tries to answer that, laying out a complete worldview designed to forge what the introduction actually calls a Peronist soul. So yeah, let's see how it's all put together. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to look at its origins. Then we'll define its core philosophy, Justicialism. After that, we'll get into its key commandments, the 20 truths, see how it laid out a blueprint for an entire society, and then finally, we'll uncover its ultimate and pretty global ambition. Okay, first up, where did this whole doctrine even come from? Well, what's interesting is the text itself gives us this very deliberate history lesson. It really wants you to know this ideology wasn't just invented overnight. And what's so fascinating about this timeline is just how calculated it all seems. The text lays it out perfectly. It starts with one man's vision, it gets popular support based on pure faith in him, and only after all that does it get a formal name and get written down. See what they're doing? They're framing it not as some top-down ideology, but as an idea that just organically grew into the nation's guiding principle. All right, so what is this doctrine actually all about? At its very core, you'll find a philosophy with a pretty specific name, Justicialism. So let's break down exactly what that means. Okay, so at its heart, the document defines justicialism as a philosophy with two really clear goals: make the people happy and make the nation great. And how do you do that? Well, the method is all about finding a perfect harmony between the material stuff society needs and its spiritual values. So how do you get that harmony? According to the doctrine, it all rests on these three interconnected pillars. And the logic is actually pretty straightforward. You can't be politically sovereign unless you're economically independent. And you can't be economically independent unless your people have social justice. See how they all lock together? And this right here is the doctrine's big geopolitical idea. It explicitly carves out what it calls a third position by just straight up rejecting the two big global ideologies of the time. It calls capitalist individualism decadent and materialistic, and it calls communist collectivism inhuman and also materialistic. Justicialismo, then, is presented as the superior, humanist, and Christian path that finds the perfect balance between those two extremes. Okay, so the heart of the doctrine, the real core of it, was boiled down for the public into this really concise, super memorable list. Think of it like a set of commandments for the entire movement. And here they are, the 20 Peronist truths. The text itself calls them the unshakable pedestal of the entire ideology. Wow, they were announced by Perón himself back in 1950. Let's check out a few key examples. The very first truth is a game changer because it completely redefines democracy. Forget about process or elections. According to this, democracy is purely about the outcome. A government is only democratic if it does exactly what the people want. Full stop. Then you get to the sixth truth, and it kind of turns inward. It's all about building this powerful sense of community and loyalty. It basically says that the bond between followers is stronger than anything else. You can see how that would create a deeply unified, almost family-like movement. And then there's the 12th truth, which lays out a really clear social priority. It's the super memorable line that focuses the whole nation's efforts on the next generation, basically framing children as the single most important and protected group in society. It's powerful stuff. So, moving beyond just philosophy, this doctrine gets really specific. It provides a detailed blueprint for exactly how the government, the economy, and all of society should be organized. This table really breaks it all down. It shows you how this doctrine is meant to be a complete interlocking system. Just follow the logic here. Politically, the government has to do what the people want. Okay, so to make that happen, the economic doctrine says capital has to serve the economy, and the economy has to serve social well-being. And all of that leads to the social goal, this unified, organized community where the family is the bedrock and work gives you dignity. See? Every single part is designed to reinforce all the others. And finally, the text reveals something huge. The ambition here didn't just stop at Argentina's borders. Oh, no. It saw itself as something much, much bigger.
Yeah, it actually positions itself as a universal ideology. The argument in the text is that, as the world gets tired of all the other isms, this third position is the real path forward for all of humanity. And this ambition, it's stated most powerfully by Eva Perón herself. This quote, which is right there in the introduction of the text, just perfectly captures that global ambition. It takes a national political leader and his ideology and elevates them to a universal status as a solution for the entire world. And that leaves us with the central question that the text itself really wants us to ask. Is this a doctrine just for one nation, something born out of its own unique history? Or is it a timeless philosophy of justice and love that's meant for everybody, everywhere? Well, the document's answer is pretty clear. It argues without a doubt that it's both.